now we're going to talk about the Ajna, which is this triangle that is up here. So the mind kind of lives between the head and the Ajna, right? So we know that we learned about the mechanics of the pressure to think. Now, what receives that pressure is the Ajna, right? This is how we mentally come up with answers, right? We conceptualize, we think. This is a place of awareness. This is mental awareness. It is not pressure. It's not energy. So right there, and then we can see that mechanic shows us that the mind doesn't have access to energy, first of all. So that's why we cannot use it to make our decisions, because it won't work. So the Ajna is awareness. What is awareness? Well, it actually starts as fear. So anxiety is a mental fear, and all those little gates in there have different fears, like mental fears, right? But really, the fear is what prods intelligence. It's what leads us to awareness. So it's important to understand that. If you have the head undefined, there's a good chance potentially that you also have the Ajna, but not necessarily undefined. But a lot of people also have it undefined. And what this means, it's first of all, it's a sign of intelligence, right? It means you're open-minded. There can be some anxiety, though, that is created about figuring out your life mentally. And this actually goes even if it's defined. If it's defined, you have a fixed certain way that you have a lot of anxiety about in your life. Okay. Now, the strategy or the coping mechanism for having it undefined is trying to prove that you're certain. When we look at genetics, we look at just how humans operate, right? And now imagine we're in a village somewhere. We're not in this type of world, even though this type of world still gives us a lot of anxiety with everything going on. But imagine you're like in a village somewhere, and you're trying to survive. If you're not mentally aware or mentally knowing of how your life is going, that can create a lot of anxiety if you don't know the answers and things like that. So what happens? We try to prove to others or try to prove to ourselves, oh, I'm certain. Look at this. I'm so certain about this. Now, you can be certain about certain things, but start embracing the I'm not sure, maybe, and embracing not knowing. And we start to see this kind of subtly coming out. I've noticed even in myself, I have an undefined Ajna. There will be times where I'm like, I'm never moving to somewhere where it's cold, right? And it's just like my mind trying to be like, oh, I'm going to force my certainty on my reality, right? I do have choice in my strategy and authority, but it's something that I was like, oh, wait, that really came out in a way that's not actually true or correct. And so it does show up in subtle ways. The other way it can show up in a distortion is trying to sound really intellectual or trying to prove to people that you're really smart, right? And again, this could be coming from that distortion. Doesn't mean that you're not smart, right? Or that you're just trying to prove that you're smart, but this could be a coping mechanism for how you operate. And most of us don't have anything to prove, right? Most of us have an undefined ego. We'll get to that. Yeah. Are you trying to prove that you're certain? Are you trying to prove that you're intellectual and have all the answers or whatever the case may be? So I have a couple of things here. Well, because the mind will tell you I have to be right and certain about things, right? That's the conditioning of this. And the wisdom of this is being okay with not being certain. So that's really the lesson. I'm going to read you a couple of statements of ways that the mind or this Ajna can show up trying to distort what's actually correct for you. And this is what we need to look out for. So it says, oh, I better figure this out. We have to figure this out. Right? It's receiving all that pressure. What should I do with my life? I have to figure out what to do with my life. Where's my next move? I am certain that ... whatever that thing is. I have to figure out life because it feels futile. I have to know the answer. I have to put order to my life and get rid of chaos. I have to make this new idea a reality in my life. I better not share this because people are going to think I'm weird or strange. It's the 43. I'm not going to share my opinion because I don't want to be challenged. I have to be ready for the challenge. What am I going to say? So it can just be a lot of preoccupation with this kind of energy. So, you know, it's really more about just like watching it, how it operates. We watch that pressure from the head center. We watch how the mind tries to come up with an answer to all our pressure.
I was experiencing this yesterday, and I was working with my assistant, and she was experiencing it yesterday also. We both have open. And so I'm wondering if that was outside of us, because it was kind of like I talked to 4 or 5 people and they were all feeling it. And so is that because we were like the penta and we were feeling each other, or is that out the weather outside? Like, how would you, because I was like, I have to figure this out. And it was spinning and looping, but I knew because of the pressure and I'm emotional that it wasn't time to figure it out. And so I backed up, like I used this to back up and be like, hold on, what's going on?
Yeah.
What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are having more awareness around that since you have an undefined ajna as well. Yeah, I mean, we're not here to figure out our life mentally, so that it's just,
that's insane, right? Just that drop, that's like mic drop.
Yeah.
We're just not here to figure out our life.
Yeah, and that's like the hardest thing for a lot of people to accept, right? And it is hard to accept because it's like, well, wait, what is my life going to do? What about ambition? What about all of this stuff, right? And it's like, this stuff works. So if you've practiced with your strategy and authority, you're here, like, you're going to see how it works. And now, like, people that have an undefined ajna, as an example, we get to see how the mind works, right? And how certainty works, and how it's okay to be not mentally certain about everything. And, you know, what's important with all of that, and being okay with not being certain, knowing that anxiety is just that pressure. So if you have anxiety, right, now you have understanding, now you have awareness, right? And it's up to you what you do with it. Do you keep having anxiety and living your life off your anxiety?
No, my mind was like, if we figure it out, we won't have anxiety anymore. That's what was happening. So what about, because here's the next question, what about the person who has the defined head and ajna? Do they have that same temptation and anxiety to go and figure it out, or they have that knowing that they can tap into?
The way that I look at it is that they have a fixed type of anxiety, a fixed type of pressure, a fixed structure of how their mind works mentally, and like how they're figuring out life's questions, right? So why do we have this though, like in our field, right? It's not actually bad. It's just that, like, this is what prompts us to learn about life mentally, not figuring out our own life. But what I'm discovering through my open head and my open ajna, what I'm experiencing, oh, wow, now I can share that with you, because that's what it's for, right? The mind is for the other. It's just another way to convey experience.
Fascinating, because the clients that come to me, and I guess as a role model, they want to know how, like, because I'm always floating in that funness and in that whatever. And this is exactly how. It's just recognizing that we're on a journey, we're on a ride, we're not actually driving the ride, we're not doing it. But gosh, right. It's such a huge jump to go from that material conditioning, homogenized how you're supposed to get here. I think it's a way to a great what do you call that, segue, out of here. But that's really fascinating.
And that's why, when we talked about the strategy and authority, it's not about belief. Like, don't believe anything we're saying. Like, we don't need that, right? You don't need that either. It's prove it to yourself by experimenting. And if you don't start painting with the paints that we're giving, it's not going to make any sense. Or it's like, how does this work? But the people that are actually doing this, like I said, I've been doing sessions for years and done thousands of them. And I see people literally fly, like their lives are just taking off, and just, this information really, really gives you the life that you deserve. So
it is a passport to liberation and joy. It's it's permission, a permission slip. You already know it. You already feel it. It's already there. You're just denying it or refusing it, or in some sort of resistance. It's like a resistance to receive the freedom.
Yep.
All right. Is that all? You have anything else?
Yeah. And then we just got to surrender, and that's it for these two.